And welcome to the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority's first millage and fiscal year 2024 budget public hearing on today, September 13th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Bennett.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public input and allow the public to ask questions concerning the authority's proposed millage rate, proposed operating and capital budget, and proposed service adjustments for fiscal year 2024. Tonight, we will consider the tentative millage rate and the tentative 2024 budget, with the final vote coming in 2 weeks. Copies of our proposed budget are available if you have not already obtained one. The proposed fiscal year 2024 budget is included herewith with an operating budget of $114,480,470 and a capital budget of $73,531,077. First, the millage rate for fiscal year 2024. The fiscal year 2024 proposed millage rate is unchanged at 0.7500. The fiscal year 2024 rollback rate is 0.6764. PSTA's millage rate cap is 0.7500. The proposed property tax rate is used to fund the fiscal year 2024 budget. Now we'll go to our staff statement for the record, and for that we have Brad Miller with us. Sorry.
Press that there. Okay. Good evening. This public hearing has been scheduled so that the general public may be given an opportunity to comment on the proposed millage rate, budget, and service adjustments for fiscal year 2024. An advertisement concerning this public hearing appeared in the Tampa Bay Times on August 27th. Notices were posted at PSA transit centers in Park Street in Clearwater, Grand Central Station, Williams Park, the Pinellas Park Transit Center, PSA Administrative Headquarters, on all PSA buses, and on the PSA website on August 25th. An announcement was posted on social media on August 25th as well. To date, PSTA staff has received 33 comments that are in your packet from the public concerning the millage rate and budget.
All right, and now PSTA's Chief Financial Officer, Debbie Laos, will give a presentation summarizing the budget. Good evening, Debbie.
Well, good evening and thank you. As you just mentioned, tonight we have two action items. One is to adopt the tentative millage rate for fiscal year 24, and one is to adopt the tentative fiscal 24 budget. I have to say it's been an extremely challenging budget cycle, and we've had diminishing COVID relief funds combined with a very high inflationary environment, a 40-year high. And in this area, it's been about 10% that we've been dealing with. But in addition to the fine work of Brad and staff on this budget, on this draft budget, what has really impressed me is the amount of effort that this board has put in a very collaborative way with staff to come up with solutions. And I think that's one of the many reasons we're number one in the country. You don't find that everywhere. I think our thing fell asleep. Oops. So this chart you have seen before. We've had it in several of our budget presentations and at the budget workshop. The blue line on here is our revenues and what our projection on the revenues are. You can see it's relatively flat, and for fiscal 24, it shows $114 million. Based on the environment within which we've been operating and assumptions, we took a look at the beginning of the process and we said we're at $120 million worth of expenses. Now, we have to get the two lines together. so that we have $114 million of revenues and $114 million of expenses. Revenues have to equal expenses in a fiscally responsible environment. So our goal was to reduce the non-personnel expenses as much as possible so that we were basically flat to this year's budget, giving the revenues a chance to grow. So I'm kind of shrinking down the expenses while allowing the revenues to grow so that they meet. And then we can start working towards that. Now, I always say we're one of the most efficient transit authorities in the country, but I can tell you I've heard from Commissioner Scott, we have to continue to use the innovations that we have, that we're known for, to help further drive down expenditures. Commissioner Gao has been very good at reminding us, Debbie, don't forget about the revenue side of the house. So we've got inspiration on the expense side, inspiration on the revenue side. Commissioner Showman, over the last few years, has been very good at providing some, Debbie, let's think about this strategically on how we use our revenues, when we use our revenues. We've drawn from real-life experiences over these last meetings. Commissioner Peters has faced these challenges in the past and has basically told us what she has had to come up against. So we keep all of that quite in mind as we do this. So we have done quite a bit with the budget. Matter of fact, let me show you. We have reduced expenditures in this budget a significant amount across all lines. Now, we've also had to cover some expenditure lines that have gone up, such as insurance. I don't have control over the insurance market. That's something each one of us is facing, whether it be individually, as a business, or as our own government entity. So we've done quite a bit to reduce expenses. We've also taken a look at revenues. And where we can, we've increased it a little bit in there so that we're working towards that balance. Now, let me just go back a moment because I want to reiterate what's really important to me about this slide. Through the work that we've done, through the expenditures, through the revenues, we have balanced the budget at $114 million. So what we've come up with, I'm going to have Heather talk about, is some of the service, not necessarily the changes, but the alternatives that we've come up with, that we have come up with some innovative ways to address the needs of our riders. And some of it has even been inspired by our board members. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Evening. So as Debbie mentioned, some service reductions are assumed as part of the budget. This right here was the original about $3 million list that was advertised to the public, and that was voted on by the board in July. Based on public comment and your input, we've whittled it down to a new set of recommendations that we've been working on identifying alternatives for. Due to some of the budget savings identified, our current recommendations are for about $1.5 million in service reductions. The planning committee reviewed this in detail this morning, and the detailed presentation is in your packets this evening. So we knew this would be challenging, so we've been working the last couple of months to identify viable alternatives for these routes for our riders. For example, Debbie just alluded to it, we are pursuing an innovative on-demand reservation system inspired by FlixBus. And then another example is the Route 90, where we would restructure it and have it run bi-directionally, which is how most routes run, and so that would provide, we think, better and more efficient service. Per the discussion at Planning Committee today, we will provide more details on all the alternatives at our board meeting in a couple of weeks. And now I'll hand it back to Debbie.
Thank you. So the action items again tonight are for approving a tentative millage rate, which is maintaining at our current 0.7500, and adopting the resolution for a tentative budget of the $114.5 million that you have in your packet. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
All right, thank you. questions from the board? I usually like to take public comment first, but if we had a question before we go to that. No? Okay. And this one is specifically for public comments on the millage rate. We have one request to speak from Elizabeth Stoker.
Good evening. I just wanted to address the issue with the millage rate and request that we do not decrease it. If anything, we should be advocating to increase it. It's about time that we view public transit as what it is, a public service. And with this banner behind us, I think this board should honestly be embarrassed of some of the decisions that they've made previously. I saw only 2 people vote to keep what was already voted for the free fares on the Sunrunner, a service that had its millionth ride today, which is absolutely unprecedented in less than a year. Public transit has been widely used by so many people here, and the fact that we are continuing to let someone bully us with their political agenda when their community does not even contribute taxes towards PSTA is ridiculous to me. We are talking about a millage rate that would reduce costs maybe like what, $10 or less for the household. And it's ridiculous that people are like, well, I never use transit. I don't need this. Well, how many times have you called the fire department for your house burning down? You probably haven't. How many times do you call the sheriff or the police to your house? Probably don't do it that often. But you don't complain about your taxes going to that. You don't complain about your taxes going to all the other services, because that's what this is. It is a service. And for the board members, I beg of you, please, to treat it that way. And if your only goal is to get up here and try to tear this down from the inside out and not treat this as a public service that it is, I please ask that you do not run for re-election and you not just hear what people are saying, but you listen. Because there are so many of us that do choose to ride public transportation, not because we just need to. I ride the 20 every single day to work. I'm very lucky to do that. My fiance and I bought our house on a route because I was able to sell my car, and we were able to get a house because I was able to have more money to put down for a down payment. That's why a lot of people move to cities like St. Petersburg. My big request moving somewhere from college was that I didn't have to drive to work every day, and PSTA has made that possible for me. And it's unfair to try to take that away from other people and to make transportation costs such a large burden in their lives. So please, keep the millage rate what it is, and in the future, let's try to make it higher. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we have any other requests to speak on the millage rate? All right, we'll close public comment and go to our board discussion. Any questions?
Board discussion on the millage rate and the budget.
On the millage rate.
Millage rate first.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the
Move
tentative?
approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the tentative millage resolution. Yeah, mine's not up yet.
You, buddy. All these iPads up here broke. Go back to the old.
Yeah, if you could just do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Albritton,
Yes.
Big Sanders,
Yes.
Driscoll,
Yes.
Gow,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Reed. No. Commissioner Flowers, I'm not sure if she was able to join.
Mark Reed is a yes, by the way. She
Bennett,
said she was a no.
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
You're going on record.
Scott,
Is it okay?
No.
Gonzalez,
No.
And I was a no.
I need to read the resolution.
Okay.
Ready?
So the resolution is as follows.
Resolution 2302, resolution of Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority fixing a tentative millage rate to be levied for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30, 2024, and providing for an effective date.
All right. So we're caught up?
Yep.
All right. And the motion passes 10-4 with Commissioner Flowers being absent. All right, and now for the record, I must make this announcement for the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority. The FY 2024 proposed millage rate is .7500. The FY 2024 rolled back rate is .6764. The FY 2024 proposed millage rate of .7500 is 10.88% greater than the rolled back rate. PSJ's millage rate cap is .7500. Now, next we'll go to our public comments on the fiscal year 2024 budget. If you have not done so already and you'd like to speak on the budget, please fill out one of the blue public hearing cards and give it to our staff sitting here at the front table. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which the cards are received, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. We have some cards here now, so I'll go ahead and call the first speaker, which is Roger Edelman.
Good evening, all. Long time no see, some faces here. So, I'm going to put a caveat in. I have a letter to read, but I've also given the folks over here at the counter a copy of that letter. And for any of those of you who have had cataract surgery, my apologies as I read this. Things tend to get a little bit blurry in here, so if it doesn't come out right, my apologies. So, to PSTA board members, during its regularly scheduled August 8th, 2023 council meeting, the Seminole City Council reviewed the proposed reductions in service for the PSTA to meet the expected budget shortfall. Councilors specifically discussed the proposed elimination of Route 58 and unanimously voted to ask you to retain this route for our residents and for the students at the St. Pete campus, college campus. Route 58, and I think if I'm going to say anything tonight, the most important thing I want to say to you is Route 58 is the only route that serves SPC Seminole Campus, the Seminole Community Library, Seminole City Hall, and the Seminole Recreation Complex. The only route that serves those. The route also has many stops that serve employees and patrons of businesses along its path, beginning at the Seminole City Center, up 113th Street, all along Bryant-Derry Road, 118th Street North, and on to Gateway Mall with stops at Raymond James Towers and Franklin Templeton. There has no doubt been reductions in ridership during the pandemic. We all know that. But the way to build volume back is to continue the service as businesses and citizens in general get more comfortable returning to their regular schedule and their regular lives. We are certainly seeing more traffic at the city facilities as well as our city center. And I know that Provost Strickland has mentioned that there are several collegiate programs that are being moved from other locations to the Seminole campus, which will certainly offer and encourage a new population of riders. Cutting access to city services and to the current and expanding educational programs offered by the college, in our view, is the wrong way to balance the budget. We should be expanding and promoting ridership as a safe and environmentally sound way to get around the county effectively and efficiently, as well as supporting the public transit mission to provide access to education and services for those who are unable to use private vehicles.
Thank you.
I saw in the thing tonight briefly that there's obviously been some discussion about changing the service and the way Route 58 was run. And with that being considered, if that is the case, then as part of that plan, we would hope that you would consider increasing some of the added services available and established on this potentially truncated route.
All right, sir.
Okay?
The 3 minutes is up, but thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your comments.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Oh, yes, and before I forget, I wanted to mention that we did receive a letter from the city of Seminole that will be included in the packet regarding the changes, and that same Route 58 was mentioned in that. And while we're at it, we did have 24 signatures on a request regarding Route 32 in St. Petersburg and this is from a group of bus riders that signed that. Both of these will be entered into the record. Our next speaker is Benjamin Ayers.
Good evening, and thank you for having this hearing and giving us the opportunity to speak on behalf of the upcoming changes. I realize with the economic situations and everything that there are a lot of hard decisions that are having to be made at this point. And to say it's a hard task is an understatement, but I do see, even just from the meeting starting already, there seems to be some definite hard approach here of trying to make some resolutions to things. And as a writer, I do see that there's definitely a need for a lot of the routes that are looking to be canceled. And one of the things that I noticed just in my everyday writing of the bus system that kind of seems to be overlooked is that it was mentioned, for example, moving the Route 59 to every 20 minutes instead of 15. But there are also a couple of other routes that come to mind. The 74 and the 60 would be the ones that come to mind just kind of off the top of my head here, where I have never been on these routes during the midpoints of the day where I see more than 5 to 10 people. And something to consider, and I would hope that you might consider as well, is possibly moving these routes back to a every 30-minute service instead of an every 20. If you did that, then that might also, possibly free up some of the buses as well as some of the drivers that could, go and take some of these other routes and would allow the routes to stay running without as much of an impact to the main system. And there would still be very sufficient abilities for the 74 and the 60 to carry its passengers from A to B without a detrimental impact to the public. Also, just looking at my personal situation, I would hope there might be a little leeway in the timing for the end of the day. I take the 52 frequently, and as a visually impaired person, especially as this hot summer we've had, and able to go pick up groceries, I go to the Largo Transit Center where the Walmart is there. And one thing I have discovered is that in order to do that and have groceries get home without them spoiling or going bad because of the excessive heat this year, that the bus that actually departs around 10 p.m. is actually the one I need to get everything home. Obviously, November 5th is not going to be an issue with the sun going down at 6 o'clock, but when you get to June and July of next year, that could be a detrimental problem. And then as well, I also noticed there's quite a few employees that wish they could be there that I've spoken with as well from the Largo Walmart who use that route to go home. So I would hope there might be a little bit of consideration, maybe at least a 10:30 extension so that that last northbound could run up to the Park Street Terminal, or have a southbound that would go at least to the lay-by here and give, myself as well as others a chance to, be able to do the things they would need to do, especially during the peak of summer there. Also, I had one question for the board, and in 2021, there was a change with the vendor that was to the wraps that are on the buses. And I know at the time there was a lot of positivity about the fact that, they didn't want the Morgan and Morgan bus running around, but that might be something to consider looking at. And the question was, if you went back to the full wraps versus the half wraps, how much would that affect a change in the budget? And is that something that can even be considered mid-contract? I thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. Elizabeth, again. The same one as Brad.
Thank you. I would just like to stress again that it's time that we fund this as a public service, and if there is any other alternative, like advertising or something else that can be found other than reducing routes or reducing frequency, that would be the preferred option. We're never going to improve the service if we keep on lowering the frequencies and cutting the routes. The only way to improve and become a more efficient transit system is to be well-funded and have frequent and reliable service. We're one of the lowest funded transit agencies in the US, and it's not like we're the only ones that are struggling to make budget. I mean, everything has gotten fundamentally more expensive for everyone, including public transit agencies. So I just ask if there's any other way that can be found other than reducing the frequency and the routes. That would be preferable. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Joanne Zucker?
Good evening. I would like to say thank you for allowing me to speak. I have been a public transit rider and paratransit rider since I was a teenager, so golly gracious, I don't want to date myself, but almost going on 4 or 5 decades, and all over the country. And I will say, I've been here for 2 years now, and I find that the Pinellas has been the best one that I've been a patron of, and some of the cuts or increase in rates scare me. For example, I live in one place, but I'm looking to move somewhere else, and Safety Harbor was one of them. And when you cut Safety Harbor, that means that includes access, from what I read, which means then I would not have a way to work. My other concern is raising the rate of mobile on demand. It's $3.50 each way, but if I were to personally go to a doctor's office, then he gives me a script, and then I gotta go to the pharmacy. Oh, and it's grocery day, I gotta go to the grocery store, and then I gotta go pick up my mother at parent daycare, whatever you call it. And then we're going well over $29 just for one day. When my husband's car, when he drives it, sometimes he can get a whole weekend for $30. So that just seems a little bit outrageous. Also, I work at the Lighthouse of Pinellas, and a lot of my clients are out in the community, so I take mobile on demand sometimes 4, 5, 6 times a day. Again, that would be over $29 if I do it 6 times in one day. So I'm thinking the pricing on that is a little bit out of reach, unacceptable, and way more costly than if I could have a car, which I can't because I'm not allowed to drive. And then I think of the patrons who come to the Lighthouse as well, who may also rely on mobile on demand. I don't know what their schedule will be like, but I also know a lot of them are lower income than me. I don't know how they can afford, even if they were to go 3 or 4 times, a couple times over the $3.50 normal, then that's, $6 and then $10, whatever. That's just a little pricey, especially if they're low income. So I'm not only thinking of me and other patrons that use access and mobile on demand or live in Safety Harbor or some of the other areas that are being cut or reduced, but I'm just looking out for all the citizens who need to use access and mobile on demand. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Isabel Harris?
Hello? Oh, thank you. I would just like to speak on the number 5 bus. So when I heard that the number 5 bus was going to be taken out, I felt very scared and honestly very anxious, because for me and very many others, that is the sole way of getting to SPC, as well as their work, their homes. That is their sole mode of transportation. And as someone who does not have the liberty of being able to afford a car, nor having their mother chart them all across St. Pete, trying to get them to their work, their school, their after-school activities, and so much more, it is frightening to think that the way that I interact with people could be taken away due to a bus route getting taken away. And like me and so many others, this bus route is incredibly important and extremely, it's extremely close to where they live. Other bus routes are farther away, and I don't know if you've ever walked around St. Pete near downtown, but I have almost gotten hit by cars a multitude of times trying to get to other bus routes. So the proximity of the bus route to the houses is what makes this bus route so accessible. And by taking that away, you're taking away a way that people are able to live their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley, I think it's Bush. Yes.
Good evening, and yes, Haley Bush. I apologize for the scrawl. I was in a rush getting here. I'm sorry to be late, but glad to be here this evening in front of you all. I'm a St. Petersburg resident, and for my work, I travel around the state of Florida. I've lived in Leon County, I've lived in Alachua County, and I can tell you that I am here to tout the PSTA system for being the gateway transit system for me living here in St. Petersburg, Florida. I never rode public transit until living here. I think you all, I'm looking at the banner behind you, best in the nation, right? Most underfunded agency in terms of bang for the buck. Despite this, you all have been able to provide high-quality public transportation service. I'm a member of the Car Free St. Pete Committee, and our group has been fortunate enough over the last year, 2 years, to receive presentations from PSTA staff. So I've heard and seen the ridership numbers, the increases, how you all have made your budget stretch really thin across the board. And so I wanted to first thank you all for serving our community, and congrats on your successes. I'm speaking to voice disappointment with decisions to cut routes and reduce service, and I understand that your staff have had to make difficult choices and look carefully at where to cut costs. As was voiced by a couple of the previous speakers, public transit is a public service, and I'm speaking to this board, but also constituents across our county, my neighbors, community members, to recognize the service we're getting from PSTA. And as the county continues to grow and develop, we need to be increasing or adding routes and service, not cutting it. So thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Lewis.
Good evening, y'all. Sorry for wearing a Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops to a public meeting, but I didn't really expect to speak today, so here we are. Jessica Lewis. I'm a St. Pete resident. I have had a goal of not having to own a car, not having to have to own a car for my whole life. And similar to our just previous speaker, St. Pete is the first place where I've actually been able to take public transit to work, to fun, and all kinds of other things when needed. I don't have it enough. I think we need to be expanding our routes. I have a day job and I have a night job as a service industry worker. I can take the bus to work, but I can't take it home because it ends too early at night. So in my opinion, we should not be considering reducing our routes, whether how often they run or how many of them are. I think we need to be expanding them. So I do not envy the staff that had to make these recommendations. Coming up with a balanced budget is extremely hard to do, and we should not be doing that at the harm of our constituents here in PSTA's range. Public transportation is a triple bottom line item. It's good for society, it's good for economics, and it's good for the environment. I'm not sure if you're aware, but atmospheric deposition of nutrients and other types of pollutants is the number 2, or atmospheric deposition is the number 2 source of nutrient pollution into Tampa Bay. That's a really big deal. If I didn't have to drive my car, and millions of my colleagues here in this area also didn't have to drive their car, that would be amazing. That would have a huge impact on water quality, which even our conservative members say that they care about. So in my opinion, this is not a good decision. We should not be cutting routes. It is not going to help water quality. It is not going to help the people that live under your constituency, and it is not going to help our workers. So I very much am against cutting any routes, as I've said 5 times now, but I guess I'll say it again. And that's where I'll leave it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Oh, we have a hand raised back. And is it Ada Porter?
Hey.
I'm sorry. Good evening.
Hello, thank you. So I take the Route 5 bus every day to school. It's, with me living so far from the college campus, SBC, it's the Gibbs campus on 66th and 5th. And taking the Route 5 has been just the most efficient way for me to get to school. Currently, my bus ride to school is usually about an hour and a half. And I've tried taking many different routes to school to find something that's the most efficient, and this has been just the most efficient. And every day that I take this route, there's always people that are trying to get to school, that are trying to get to SBC of many different ages, but it's always the students that are taking the route. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Any others? All right. We'll go ahead and close public comment. And I do want to just take a moment to thank everyone who took the time to be here tonight and speak, as well as those who have sent emails and letters. You are being heard, and we appreciate you. All right, so we will go to our discussion. Commissioner Schulman?
Hello.
Good evening, Commissioner Flowers. Commissioner Schulman, if you
Hi,
don't mind.
good evening.
So Commissioner Flowers is joining us by Zoom, and we do need to vote to allow her to participate virtually, so.
Approval? Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to allow Commissioner Flowers to participate virtually. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and welcome, Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, so just to get you up to speed, we just finished public comment on the budget, and we're beginning the board discussion, and we'll go to Commissioner Schulman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been looking at the budget and thinking about the budget for a while, and longer than I have in prior years. And, you know, several months ago, we had a presentation by USF St. Pete students that talked about the need for disabled veterans to get rides within our county. And And actually, I just learned today that Pinellas County has the second highest rate of disabled veterans, homeless veterans in the country. And we learned that I learned that at the planning committee. I'm sure other people already knew that. And so the students demonstrated a real need to be able to provide transportation to disabled veterans, and thought that was a wonderful goal. The staff then went back and looked and found that would cost $89,000 of lost revenue to provide free rides to disabled veterans. At that moment, instead of approving that, this board set out on a path to provide free rides to all veterans. And I feel we did not have numbers. We didn't know what the cost would be. We clearly didn't understand the impact the loss of revenue would be to actual riders that need our service, right? So we went from a demonstration of need and our ability to meet that need, and then surpass that to providing free service to, while a very worthy community, did not necessarily demonstrate the need, and instead we're here listening to riders talk about how they're going to lose their rides, and it's impacting that community. So in the scope of the budget, our current passenger fare estimate revenue is $7.3 million, which is $300,000 less than it would be if we had approved just disabled veterans ride free. And so that is taking $300,000 away from our budget that we can use to provide service on these other routes. And I believe that item should be brought back and looked at again in the context of reducing routes or eliminating routes. So the budget as it stands right now, I would not be in favor of, and I would look to reverse that course and add that $300,000 of expected revenue back in, return to the program that was presented based on the need that was presented for disabled veterans to ride free, and look at bringing back some of these routes that are currently looking at being cut. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and maybe you could think about a way that you might make a motion with an amendment.
I can do that too.
Amendment. But if you want to hold up, and
I will hold
there
in-
could be more than one, and so this could save us some time at the end.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I want to thank everyone that showed up today, and I mean that. I was a bus rider back in 2013, and I was the only person that showed up at these meetings, these budget meetings, and I'm grateful for you, I really. And I also want it to be known that I am absolutely against any kind of route cuts, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders?
Thank you so much. And I have to also concur with Commissioner Cox. It means a lot when we hear from the community, because a lot of times we make decisions based on revenues and expenses versus lived experiences. Not understanding the importance of how one bus route being taken away, although it may not impact thousands and thousands of people, it's the people that have been reliant upon PSTA providing just that, public transportation. And the more we spoke about it, there were two routes in particular that I really did not support being eliminated. And I appreciated the conversation in today's planning meeting in regards to looking at other options. We voted on providing free rides to all veterans. Okay, we're there. But I don't want to start backtracking, which is why I'm hesitant about eliminating routes with very unintended consequences. And how do we backtrack that? How do we fix that? How do we collect data to see just how many people were impacted in regards to us not being a little bit more mindful and strategic in what we're saying. So based on my comments at the planning meeting this morning, as presented, I'm not in support of where we are, especially with eliminating routes. If we found money at the drop of a hat like we've done for other initiatives, I think we could probably, short of eliminating positions and jobs, that's not where I want to find those funds from. But, you know, it's hard. It's hard not having transportation. And for those that have intentionally decided not to purchase cars, to control the emissions and to be more efficient, I thank you for that. And St. Pete is growing. We're getting larger, we're not getting smaller. So I'm just kind of concerned at what eliminating routes would look like at this point with the rate of growth that we're currently having. And I can basically just speak for the city of St. Petersburg. So those are my comments on that. But looking at some of the routes, like I said, there were two in specific that I was really uncomfortable with. And the other ones I couldn't comment because I don't know personally. I don't have the information on those. So with that, thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. And we have Commissioner Peters next.
Thank you. I just would say that Mr. Schulman's idea of taking away the veterans riding for free, I would never support that, and I don't think it should be bundled in with the budget vote. Secondly, first of all, but and the reason on the veterans is we don't know. Staff first projected a huge number of what the cost would be. Now the number has been lowered, but the truth of the matter is we don't know. And so if you want to eliminate that, I would wait until we have data and we find out. I mean, it's an assumption that either a lot of our riders are veterans already and they won't be paying, or a large number of veterans who already drive cars are not going to drive cars and they're going to start riding the buses. And I don't know if that's factual. None of us know what's going to happen. And so I would not entertain reversing something we just decided on until we had data. And so, you know, if in fact staff's numbers are correct after a year, then maybe we could consider it. But we just made that decision, and I certainly wouldn't bundle it with the budget, as was mentioned. But I wouldn't support it at all, period. We let almost a million people ride for free and many of them were paying anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a night in a hotel so they can have entertainment in downtown St. Petersburg, and we let them ride for free. But I certainly am not going to let my veterans that we decided just a couple months ago to allow free to now take that away from them. I absolutely would not support that at all, not at all.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I would realize that I have currently a 1 no vote. I would make a motion that we amend the budget to reflect a reduction in the Veterans Ride Free program to include disabled veterans ride free, what was originally presented to us, and then use those funds in order to preserve other routes.
All right, we have
Madam Chair, yeah. Would you allow a friendly amendment to your amendment?
Depends.
That if the data comes back and shows that we can afford it, then we would go back to implementing it for all veterans?
I would accept that amendment, and not only would I accept it, I want veterans to ride free. My question is the timing in lieu of budget, in lieu of route cuts, if that's the right point. So,
and given the fact that we originally made the decision with no data, it's ironic that now some people are holding back because there's no data. Interesting. I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll go to Commissioner LaValle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will be voting against this motion, and if it does pass, I will make another motion to get rid of the following fare-free days that PSTA has since we're looking for money to save these routes. And PSTA allows the following fare-free days. One for the general election, Veterans Day, New Year's Eve, Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade Day. There's a program for spring break. In Dunedin, there is a Blue Jays spring training program that's free, so we need to get rid of that. Municipal Election Day, Stand Down for Homeless Vets, Earth Day, St. Pete Pride Parade Day, a Car-Free Day, and Halloween on Central. So I will be making a motion after Mr. Shulman's motion is decided to get rid of many of those that I mentioned. I may keep a couple of those veteran ones, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And we have Commissioner Oliver.
This is a tough one. I'm going to support Commissioner Schulman's motion. I was one of two people that voted against the free fares for all veterans at the time it came up at a very chaotic meeting after people had left and were about to leave. I've been proud of serving on this board because it's been data-driven, and I'm afraid that that was emotion-driven. I fully support free fares for veterans, but without understanding the impact. And I understand Commissioner Peters' concern about veterans, but I'm also concerned about students from St. Petersburg College and losing Route 5. And I think we have to be concerned about that as well. And so I'm supporting this motion because I think that the original action to extend this to all veterans, for which I took grief and didn't appreciate it, was made without the appropriate study that this board is used to doing before we implement a policy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Commissioner Peters.
And I have great respect for you, but did we do a study on the free fare for the Sunrunner other than marketing? And you know, it was emotion driven, but this is being taken off the table after it passed by a pretty large number without any data. And I really think that it should stay in place for a year. And in a year, if we decide that the staff was correct, which I personally don't believe they are going to be correct, that after a year, that then we take that and put that on the table. But I'm a firm believer that you don't take a motion like that and add it onto the budget. That could have been a separate motion altogether. That he didn't do that. You all seconded it. You didn't do it that way. But I don't know that we completely do studies every time we do a free fare day. Or when we did the Sunrunner Day, I think that was more for marketing to get people used to it. It wasn't a study. And I don't think there's true evidence to know the impact of that veterans fare. So, you know, that's just my opinion, and I'll leave that at this point. But I just could not support taking that away from our veterans at all.
Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we had a fully funded budget at our millage rate, we were able to keep our routes and do everything else that we wanted to do, and have this veterans program, Veterans Ride Free, fully, I would be absolutely in support of that. We are not at that point. We are talking about cutting routes, reducing service, truncating routes, changing frequencies that affect real people every day, and we heard from some of them today. And so we voted to put something in place that was not asked for, that was not, we weren't shown a need. No one was requesting it because it felt good. And I agree it feels good, and I agree it's the right thing to do. But it's not the right time to do it, and it's not the right time to do something like that on the backs of students and other folks that are using some of these other routes to live their normal lives. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Fix-Sanders.
Thank you. I left a planning meeting this morning thinking that, and I do see that they made some modifications to the routes that they're requesting being eliminated, but I thought we were going to look at other resources for the short budget shortfall in lieu of eliminating routes. At least that's what I thought. because that seems to be the wedge that's causing, well, are we gonna eliminate him? If we do, we're gonna do this. If we're not, we're gonna do this. I'm understanding Commissioner Schulman's point. I'm understanding. I'm uncomfortable with backtracking. I'm uncomfortable with backtracking because it passed. It passed, whether we wanted it to or not, it passed. But I thought that we were looking at other options other than moving forward, not going back and redoing something that we'd already done. So if I misunderstood that when I left the planning committee meeting, I do apologize for that, because I was under the understanding that we were gonna get other options presented before the final vote, which is why we're calling this a tentative fiscal 2024 budget. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the reminder that this is tentative, and we still have work ahead of us. We'll go to Commissioner Reed and then Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Peters and also with Commissioner Latvala, and that if we have all of those free services that we offer for all of those days, we should look at what we are giving away for free before we take away routes and stuff for the veterans before we start chopping things off. And I agree that it shouldn't be in this vote, and I think we should look at something else before we do that, especially cutting routes. It shows that we have a lot of people who use it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for your comments. I do apologize for not being there in person. I am not going to support the motion on the floor. Today, during our planning meeting, while they are not the only population that are unhoused and homeless, we heard a very good presentation from a number of persons, and several of those individuals that they are seeking to provide assistance for are homeless veterans. We just recently cut a ribbon for building affordable housing units only for veterans. That was funded only for veterans. We have a number of programs that are only for specific groups of people, so I don't think that this is inappropriate nor disproportionate to provide that transportation service for them. The other reason I'm not going to support it, and this is not being negative Nancy to staff, but I made some suggestions and recommendations as it relates to potential funding partners. I've not heard anything back, whether they said yay, nay, or not. In addition, we were to have individuals that would be on a number of routes taking surveys from persons in the community and providing us with that information as it relates to what they say, what they think, or what they feel about PSTA and public transportation and the services we're provided. And while that survey may not be completed, we would be able to garner some information that would help us make not a fluid decision, but a sound decision when it comes to doing away with routes. I've not heard anything about that. We say that ridership is down, but we're getting from individuals that not necessarily so, based on where it is that they're going and whether or not it's in point or if it's through transportation services. So I'm not going to support the motion that's on the floor, and nor will I support the motion of doing away with the transportation services on those holidays. The transportation that's provided really helps individuals who may be drinking at these functions and would otherwise get on the road and possibly have an accident. Not saying they would, but possibly. And so I don't support taking those away because we are saving lives. And in that particular scheme, for me, it is a public safety issue as well as a public service issue. So those are my feelings on that. I'm not going to support. And, you know, you talk about finding $1.25 million, 300,000, it will help, but that's not going to get us to where it is that we need to go. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak.
All right, thank you. And we'll go to Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. To Commissioner Schulman's point, I would argue there is public interest in this. There are two area agencies, Polk County and Pasco County, that currently have a Veterans Ride for Free program. So I believe we should join them. But I have a question for staff. I was looking at the free days, or free ride days that y'all have, and there's one that's 3 weeks long, and that is the Blue Jays Spring Training Jolly Trolley program that you have. How much is that the PSCA spends, and would, if we eliminated just that program and kept all of the others, would we be able to keep these routes that we're discussing today?
We can provide that exact estimate of how much that costs, how much that Blue Jays service costs. It's much less than $1.5 million, which is the shortfall without making these service adjustments.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, I was just going to point out that more than half, and this is according to the Florida Sports Foundation, more than half of people that attend spring training games in Florida are from out of state. And so if we were looking at things to cut, I think we certainly should start there and then look at other things and keep the existing routes that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett?
Yes, I think that the $1.5 million that we would save by cutting these routes, that's less than 1% of our budget. I just think that our CEO should tell the people that work for this organization, figure out some way to find 1.5% and don't cut any of the routes. 1.5 million, as I said, is less than 1%. Surely we can find that. We can take some of the free routes that we give now and add a fare. We can do something with other costs and find the 1.5 million.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And Commissioner Albritton?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to find out, and I hadn't seen any numbers on, was we were talking about having some of the municipalities help us out on the trash issue, because we have a huge trash budget going around picking up trash at 3,000 bus stops. I mean, where are we with that? That would help out substantially.
I believe, and Debbie can confirm this, but we have previously had a $600,000 trash pickup contracted out budget in this fiscal year, and we have cut $200,000. So cut that down to $400,000 in the proposed fiscal year 24 budget. So 1/3 of it by removing trash cans out in the community. We started a pilot of this on just a couple of trash cans. So far, I would say it's gone okay. It'll just take us some time to implement it. But we already are planning on reducing our expenses on trash.
Okay,
I did reach out to all of the city managers in the county, and I got no takers. No, other than several city managers forwarded me the phone number of Waste Management for their contract that I could pay to pick up trash in their community. I got no offers to take over the trash pickup at trash cans.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
And just for a quick second, Commissioner Flowers asked about if we had heard from, we did reach out to a number of ways in which we could find some funding to support the veterans program. I got word that the Pinellas County has published the list of finalists to be approved by the county commission, and our request that we were partnering with the Veterans Alliance of Tampa Bay did not make the cut. I don't know if the county has voted on that final list, but we were not selected for that. I know that the PSA board has voted to approve a legislative ask to the state and federal to get funding for the Veterans Program. So we'll certainly pursue that in Tallahassee and in DC. Yeah.
All right, thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Yes, and then I'm going to take my turn. So Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to point out some of the free days, for example, Pride Day, that it's not system-wide free fares. It's simply a ride to Pride, which is one of the largest events in our county with tourism and generating revenue too. It's second only to probably the Grand Prix. And what it helps to do is to mitigate the traffic, all the folks trying to get downtown. And it runs from St. Pete High School to a point, I think we did to the Palladium this year, Brad, if I'm not mistaken. But it's not a system-wide free ride on Pride Day. As well as the Halloween on Central, same thing, I believe that's just, is it not the trolley? It's just.
I'm not sure.
But again, a lot of these free things aren't system-wide. They're just for events. And they do help to mitigate traffic, and they do help to promote tourism in this area too, which I think is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to know, we have some routes that have been mentioned by speakers today. And I also want to mention that during the Forward Pinellas meeting today, earlier, Councilor Burke from Seminole had indicated a request to try to save Route 58, as has been mentioned by others here this evening. So I want that to be on the record. One that I wanted to ask about was 813 in Dunedin, and I wonder if the representative from Dunedin has any insight to share regarding that one. Is that, has there been any feedback on that, or have you heard from any writers? Because that's one that was not mentioned by a speaker tonight, but we do understand that not everyone can make it to these meetings to speak.
And no, ma'am, I haven't received any feedback. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And then 814 in Safety Harbor, I don't recall that one being mentioned. But, you know, I mean, what good is free if we don't have enough buses to get people around? I mean, somehow we've got to figure out how to make this widely available for free for those that we decide. I know that we have some partnerships, like with the Pinellas School District, for teachers and students. And we've been able to launch other initiatives, like making St. Petersburg's downtown Looper free. And we haven't had any issue with that at all. That's done as a partnership with the private sector. So I think it might be time to get creative with some of these, and the free days for specific events could be something to look at, teaming up with St. Pete Pride, teaming up with others to maybe sponsor the rides for that day. So there are some other ways that we could look at that. But someone mentioned earlier, you know, this is a service, and we have to, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to maintain the service for the people that need it. Because I tell you, we heard from some students tonight who are really trying to better their lives and set up their future. And being able to take Route 5 for instance, is a key to that. And we've heard what these routes mean to people. And that also tells us that there's going to be hardship involved if we take them away. And so I have a really hard time with that. I'm also wondering about the 10 p.m. service ending time on some of these routes. It was mentioned earlier that, you know, there's a store that closes at 10. Well, that's not, if the service ends at 10 and the store closes at 10, that's bad for the shoppers and it's bad for the employees. One of the things that we need buses for is to get people to and from their jobs. These lower ridership, I don't know how to make these numbers work, but I feel like part of it is gonna come from public-private partnerships. We hear a lot from the private sector about how much they love the Sunrunner, how much they love, you know, the different services that we offer. And so maybe it's time to look for more partnerships. Someone brought up the advertising. I wanted to ask you, Brad, since we changed vendors, has advertising revenue gone down?
No, it's actually gone up.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had a presentation on that.
Yeah, so we're going in the, so someone had asked, so we're actually going in the right direction on that. You know, and the buses, these buses that we cut, I'm pretty sure that I can guess that we have some veterans that take those buses. So I want us to find a way to make this work. The trash collection, I think that just needs to be worked out with the cities. If they're not gonna, if the trash containers are not going to be removed. And I know I mentioned before that the city of St. Petersburg could try to be helpful with that. And now apparently we have an extra $200,000 that we can allocate for something that's transportation related, since we're not going to be allocating that for paying down Sunrunner fares. So I'm saying that I'm open to having our city be part of the solution on that. So I think going at this with a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer is the right way to go. You know, I want to keep hearing from others. I really appreciate and respect everything that my colleagues are saying regarding our upcoming initiative for veterans and the thoughtful comments on what we might need to look at cutting instead of cutting routes. So on that note, we'll continue with Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you, thank you. A couple of things. One, based on my budget conversation, that extra $200,000, so I don't want to put it out there that St. Petersburg has that money to do something, including trash collection. But I will say that I am definitely open and would be a true advocate with the city of St. Petersburg, especially because it impacts the cleanliness of our city. So I just wanted to say that. Second, Ms. Debbie, can I ask you a question? The $109,599 that we've saved in our purchase transportation for the PSTA Mobility on Demand, did that take into consideration the increment increases of the MOD fares? Was that computed anywhere in there?
On the expense side, it was purely on the expense side.
Purely.
Purely
Okay.
on the expense side.
Okay, and the reason why I say that, just for the record as well, this morning within the planning committee, also asked for someone to explain to me how and Commissioner Schulman, he had the best request, to show us what someone like this young lady said. You have more than 3 or 4 trips per day. with what that is essentially saying is we need you all to run your errands 5 days a week. You can't just take one day and just do all of your errands in one day and save money. But we didn't have, I didn't get a clear explanation as to why our rides went up for trip 3 and 4 at $6 a piece, and then anything over that, $10 a piece. I still didn't get a clear understanding as to where those numbers come from. I was told it was from the consulting firm. It was their recommendation, but just because it was their recommendation, is it appropriate for our riders? And that's the question I have for the planning committee. So I am excited and looking forward to receiving that data to see why we found it necessary to raise the rates that high on those that definitely need transportation as a public service. And they are being hit hard in this particular recommendation for these budget changes. So I just wanted to make sure that Commissioner Schulman's request is received definitely before the next reading of the budget. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Saraki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the board members and to the staff, I just have a comment. I've read all of the comments, I guess that were from emails or text messages, I'm not sure, in the PowerPoint presentation. But what I've come to a conclusion is that what's in question is Route 58, Route 32, and Route 5. Those are the 3 routes that need to be saved, from what I understand. I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Ellen, could you read the resolution, please?
Yes, Resolution 2303, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority adopting a tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30, 2024, for carrying on the duties and obligations of the authority and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. And how do we get the amendment in there? Did you say as amended?
We will need to change the resolution to say the tentative budget as amended in section 1 of the resolution. So we'll have to, it's not in the title, let's see. I guess in the title, it also says tentative budget, so we should change the title to say the amended tentative budget.
Okay, so do you need to read it over again?
Yeah, let me try that
Okay.
again. Resolution 2303, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority adopting the amended tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30, 2024, for carrying on the duties and obligations of the authority and providing for an effective date. And just to make it clear, the motion is to adopt the budget as amended by Commissioner Schulman's motion.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fix-Sanders.
No, he just clarified it.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Could we please open the voting system? Vince, did you have a question?
I'm still not quite understanding this.
Oh,
Are we voting as, if we're voting for this budget, are we also voting for these routes to be eliminated too?
As maybe you can explain the motion better, but as I understood the motion, the routes would be, right now would be eliminated, but
tonight is for giving our
This is like what
suggestions.
we did the
and-
last time.
Yeah,
Okay, that we did.
so then it would be,
Well, Commissioner Schulman, your motion did not indicate to add back in any of the proposed service cuts.
My motion did include using the funds, the $300,000 of expected revenue to cover not reducing the routes as much as they currently are.
Okay, but you didn't identify specifically.
I need staff to weigh in on which routes
Would we
those would
do,
be.
like-
I'd have to come back on that.
would we vote on this as it is
So-
with his amendment and then do a second round of voting regarding the routes?
Well, this is what I would suggest, just based upon what Commissioner Schulman said, is if you adopt the budget as amended, which would put the $300,000 back into the budget, staff would then come back at approval of the final budget, when they would show you what how the route cuts would be changed with putting that 300,000 back in the budget. I think that's what Commissioner Schulman said. Does that make sense?
I think I understand.
So you're putting 300,000 back in the budget, instead of, free fares for the veterans, and then staff will come back and tell you how that will affect the service cuts.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. The voting system is open. If everyone could cast your votes.
And I'm having issues, so mine is a yes.
Okay.
I'm having issues. Mine's a yes also.
Gow is a yes. Cox is a yes. Commissioner Flowers, what is your vote? Did she drop off? Commissioner Flowers?
It's no.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I was coming in and out.
It's all good. We've got it. All right, so the motion fails, 6 to 9. Do we have someone else who would like to make a motion? Or speak more? Okay. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Oh, look, all that confusion, I forgot what I wanted to say.
We'll get back to you, I'm sure. Commissioner Latvala.
No, I remember what I wanted to say, hold on.
All right.
Okay. Because that confused me. So I also wanted to make sure with the, and I guess I wanted to question, and we've already voted, so I kind of lost that moment. And so am I to be clear? Now with that vote, we are going to get other options. Yes, no, how is that going to be presented? I just want to be clear.
Other options for
Because we
what?
keep saying,
The motion failed.
so okay, because we keep saying tentative budget, because I still have information regarding MOD. So that means there's no other information coming back to me in that regards as well. We just passed a budget with Commissioner Schulman's.
No.
Not passed it, I'm sorry, it didn't pass. But what we're saying is, because it did not pass, the current budget that we were presented, which included the increase, the incremental increases, that means the incremental increases are now going to move forward. So
If
that I'm
you-
clear.
If there's a motion to adopt the tentative budget as presented, then the answer to your question is yes. But I'm not I can't see into the future, so I don't know what motion this board's
Gotcha.
gonna adopt.
Okay.
But assuming that the tentative budget as presented by staff is eventually adopted, if that's the next motion, then the answer to your question is yes. Those fare
Okay.
changes will be included in the budget. You'll have one more vote on the budget. The final millage rate and the final budget will come back to you. I don't have,
Next month.
2 weeks.
in 2 weeks.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I would like to make the following motion to approve the budget, but amend it to eliminate the following fare-free days: the general election day, the Blue Jays spring training program, the municipal election day, Earth Day, car-free day, and Halloween on Central, and have that money go towards restoring the 3 routes that Commissioner Saraki mentioned. And I got Route 5, and I forget the other 2.
32 and 58, and I second that motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. And could you clarify which free
Yes, ma'am.
events we are going to leave in place?
New Year's Eve, Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade, and the St. Pete Pride Parade will stay in place. Oh, and I apologize, as well as the Stand Down for Homeless Veterans program and the Veterans Day program.
Well, actually, the veterans will be free.
Correct.
So,
Commissioner Schulman.
every day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am just shocked. I really wish I could understand how Commissioner Latvala's linear thinking works, but it seems more punitive than actually trying to accomplish anything. We have no idea, you're talking about changing the budget, you have no idea how much those days cost, what those values bring to those communities, but let's just throw them in to make a point. And I think it's an irresponsible way to run on a board, and I can't believe a fiscal conservative would throw our financials just up in the air to make a point. And so I'm absolutely against changing based on those. If staff can come back before our next meeting and demonstrate reasonable, reliable information that would make a difference in those routes, then I'm absolutely willing to consider it. But to go ahead and move forward with that as part of our budget, I don't even know how, I can't.
All right.
I can't.
Thank you. And I do agree, I do have a level of discomfort with cherry picking certain events. Originally, Commissioner Latvala, you had said that you were going to bring a motion to eliminate the free ride days if the previous motion passed. So now we're kind of splitting the baby, you're doing it partly anyway. I'm really trying to understand because I see a potential opportunity here, and what you've pointed out is that we do have a lot of free ride days, and maybe not all of them are justified, so maybe shrinking that a bit or eliminating these free days altogether and then adding them back in as we get partners in the private sector could be an option. But I feel a little bit uncomfortable with only eliminating some, unless we can talk about the reasons why for each one. And I'm not sure that that's a discussion that we want to have. So I'd love any clarity on that you could help us understand why we're right here right now.
Well, I mean, I appreciate Commissioner Siraki's second of my motion, but I don't believe philosophically that we should be paying for thousands of Canadians to have free rides to go to a spring training game in Dunedin. So that's one. And to Commissioner Cox's point, the St. Pete Pride Parade is one of the biggest tourist things that Pinellas County has. And so I think that giving free rides to that is a worthy cause. So that's why I'm keeping that. I think the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade is very worthwhile. That's why I'm keeping that one. And New Year's Eve, I think we should certainly have free rides for that because we shouldn't have drunk people driving. So that's why I'm keeping that one. I'm not sure if we should give free rides to people on Election Day. So I'm cutting that. I'm cutting Car Free Day and Halloween on Central because I think keeping free rides for college students to go to school and go to work is very worthwhile. And so that's why I'm, putting the additional money to the three routes that were mentioned, 5, 32, and 58. So I think we should prioritize our working class residents over rich Canadians that are here for 3 months out of the year. So I'm not going to apologize for that philosophy.
Thank you. And do you have the numbers on how much we'll save by doing that, or how much revenue will be generated by that? And then that versus these routes that we don't want to cut? I mean, does it all work out?
According to the Florida Sports Foundation, more than 50% of people that go to spring training games in the state of Florida come from out of state.
Right.
Go to Dunedin and look around at how many license plates are from Canada. I mean, and I love that we have spring training in Pinellas County, and I am one of the biggest proponents of spring training that we have around, but I don't think we need to give them free rides to go to the games.
Right. The question though was, have you done the numbers on
I
What-
did the
what the
same amount
routes-
of numbers that we did before we
So
gave
you
free
don't have-
rides
you-
to a million
so we don't
people
know
on
if-
Sunrunner.
So we don't know if this balances out. And that's where I've got a problem with it, because I need to be able to look at numbers in order to move things around, because we have to balance this. So everything else just feels like a guess, and I don't think that's why I don't think we should be doing that. So, oh, look at this lineup of people wanting to speak. Commissioner Peters.
Hi, so I think the 3 routes that were mentioned, it's clear that they're important. City of Seminole thinks they're important, the students clearly think they're important, I think it's important for the students. And if this is an option to give staff to start working, I mean, if we want to keep these routes, we've got to find a way to pay for them. And it sounds like the board wants to keep these routes based on the comments. And if Commissioner Latvala's motion helps generate some revenue that, you know, or at least those expenditures, because I don't know how many additional buses you add for every one of those free days. There could be less expenditures as a result of not free. But just as you mentioned, Madam Chair, the school people, the school teachers and school people ride for free because the school board pays for them. So there's no reason why the city of Dunedin, if they want free rides to the spring training, that the city of Dunedin couldn't pay just like the school board pays. So there's no reason why it has to be a loss of revenue. That could be a revenue generator. All we have to do is approach the city. If the city doesn't want the congestion and they want, you know, free rides for the Blue Jays, you know, the Clearwater hasn't come and asked for free rides to the Phillies games. I don't know why we're giving them to Dunedin and not to others. We could do it to a lot of places. So I think something like the Blue Jays, I completely concur with Commissioner Latval on that, because the city of Dunedin, if they don't want the congestion, they certainly could do what the school board's doing. And just like all those other events, those events are put on by organizations, and there's a possibility, and you mentioned this, that there's a possibility that they could. So I don't think that's a bad policy to take those routes. And I know you make it feel like you're guessing, but I think there's a chance for either less expenditures or an opportunity for more partners to come to the table and help fund that. I do agree with the ones that he chose to keep. I think New Year's Eve is critically important. I think Martin Luther King is important. I think Pride is really important. I mean, there's a lot of people that come in town for that, and just to manage that is important. So I think he put thought in the ones that he chose, and I think every one of the ones that he chose have opportunities for partnerships. So, and quite frankly, Pride has an opportunity for partnership, but I agree with leaving it free. But that's just my thought. I think if staff has to do something and have some kind of strategy to save those routes, because this budget doesn't include those routes, then if we give some opportunities, that I think this is a good opportunity. So I agree with Commissioner Latval on that, and he has my support.
All right, thank you. And I think one way that we could do it is to amend this to keep these routes that it seems that we have consensus on, and request that staff bring us for second reading the numbers that go with that, and here are the impacts from these free days, and we can take it from there. I really want to see the numbers that we're voting on. So what this means is we save the routes, which is great, and we will eliminate some of the free days, but and I do like the thinking behind the choices on this, but I still want to see the numbers and how you can balance this before deciding. So what I would support would be a motion to accept this with the amendment of keeping those routes that were mentioned and requesting that staff bring back a report And if it's sooner, so that we can look at it and think about it and have discussions with Brett about it or whatever, that's great. If it can be before, you know, the agenda comes out.
Are you amending the motion?
I can't. So what I'm doing is suggesting that someone could. And I just think that that would be like just a clearer way to do it instead of trying to figure this out on the fly.
I'll make that motion. I think that really we need to start thinking about public-private partnerships with everybody. Whether it be free rides for different events or trash. Each one of us, you know, represents a municipality here in this county. And we could go back, as I'm gonna go back to my city manager and say, look, we need to help out PSTA with this trash thing. I think everybody ought to go back and do that. That's $300,000, maybe $4. I mean, if we can eliminate them, that's a big nut. So I think everybody should go back. I mean, Clearwater pays for spring break for the trolley, and I think everybody should be, you know, everybody should know the benefit of public transportation and really have a piece of it.
All right, so.
He said he would make the motion, but I wrote it down. Let me try it.
Okay, and this would be, sir, would this be a substitute motion?
I failed in my
sir-
parliamentary procedure before, but I'd like to see if Commissioner LaValle will accept an amended motion.
And
They just made a motion.
All right, so this would
No,
be
I was trying to make one, and they were saying was one on the floor. That's your motion. And what, my sense is that we've got some concern, and I share Commissioner Schulman's concern without quite as much emotion, but I think we're reaching a consensus, and Commissioner Peters stated it well. Why don't a motion, something like this, adopt the tentative budget that is presented by staff, remember it's tentative, we're coming back on the 27th, adopt the tentative budget with directions to staff to look for alternative revenues or reduced expenditures to restore routes, specifically routes 58, 5, and 32.
And that,
So
that's a.
you can do this two ways. You can, either the maker and the seconder of the original motion can accept that as an amendment, or you can make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor. And then your motion needs a second.
I'll make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor.
And then you need to ask for a second.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we have.
So you have a motion to amend the motion on the floor. You have to first take a vote
On that one.
on the motion to amend. If that then passes, then you take a vote on the original motion as amended. Does that make sense?
We're gonna get there.
We'll go one step at a time.
All right.
So let's say you would take a motion. Yes, Rachel?
I'm sorry, because this is the voting system, I just want to make sure.
Did we break it?
An amended motion that Commissioner Oliver made, and I didn't hear a second. Okay. We got it here.
And Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad that Commissioner Oliver made that motion. That's in fact what I was going to make, so that we would have an opportunity to receive the exact numbers back as it relates to ridership for those routes, for the free routes. I still don't support doing away with them, with that program, but I do want to see the numbers. And I just wanted to add, you guys, we provide that free service for Pinellas County Schools. And I did share with Brad, the superintendent asked me, you know, because he wants the numbers. He doesn't know if he needs to pay less money or more money. So I'm not sure if we have provided him with that information, but I know we don't have it. I have not received it. So we have entered into agreements for services where we don't have a true value on the ridership and how many people are actually utilizing that services to see what the financial remuneration is to PSTA. So I just wanted to share that. And let me throw in the plug, I would like to see those numbers because Brad did say to me there was a way to count. So I would like to see how many students, staff, support staff are using PSTA via Pinellas County Schools. I don't like to say free service because Pinellas County Schools is gonna pay for the service, but I would like to see those numbers as well. And I fully support maintaining those routes. And I surely want to see those numbers and ask for staff to bring them back. I believe, Ms. Laus, Debbie, I think you provided us, and please forgive me if I can't remember, did you provide us with, or maybe it was another young lady that did the presentation in the planning committee, how much each one of those routes that have been selected for either merging or truncating, what's the dollar value saved on each one of those routes? I think you provided that to us. I can't remember.
It was Heather, but I also have it, so.
Yeah, we haven't
Ma'am?
provided that at this point, but we do have an estimate for how much each route the savings would be.
It looks like my sheet, and all three routes, the amount of savings that we would need to find to bring back those routes is just over $500,000. 504,449.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gao?
I just wanted to say that I love the Canadians. So, no, I
do too.
Yeah, no, just let's not forget, and I understand the commissioner's thought process or lack thereof, but it is there. But when I look at PSTA, and it's not just Dunedin and the Blue Jays, it's the entire system and organization and what purpose it serves throughout the county. And I just don't want to forget the economic impact that every rider has to this community. And the idea that we have Canadians driving down, and the ones that are driving, the ones that are spending weeks here, aren't the middle age. They're the seniors that have worked long and hard, and they're coming down enjoying Florida, not just Dunedin and not just the Blue Jays. And so the idea, I'm very confident that any money that they save riding a Jolly Trolley is not money that they're taking back to Canada. That's money that they're spending in our local shops, our local breweries, our museums, out onto our beaches. And so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and understand that this is an economic impact that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, have we asked First Transit for a price to run these routes with vans? Because, I mean, they're on the chopping block because they're low ridership. So maybe it's worth getting a price from them to see what they could operate this for with vans rather than, you know.
All right. Great idea. Vice Chair Saraki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to bring one thing to the board. I noticed a couple of the comments did say they would like the buses to go to 11. Right now, I believe the motion is till 10. We might want to change to 11 p.m. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. You could offer an amendment
And just
include
to
that.
clarify, the budget, the proposed budget does not reduce the service to 10.
Oh.
It keeps it where it is.
Thank you.
This is the list.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Anyone else? We have
You have a motion to amend the original motion that was on the floor to adopt the tentative budget, ask staff to come back to reflect, I don't know if I'm exactly using your exact terms, but basically to come back with the final budget showing money, either revenue generated or money saved, so as to include the three routes, 58, 32, and 5, as part of the final budget. Do I have that correct, Commissioner Oliver? So that's the motion on the floor, is just a motion to amend the original motion. And then if that passes, whatever happens on that motion, then we can read the resolution and adopt the resolution.
all right.
Okay?
Good. All right. Could we open the voting system, please? Commissioner Reed?
Real quick, but this is putting the veterans back in as free rides.
Yeah.
Yeah, the veterans
Yeah.
are not included on either, on the motion.
And this,
Veterans are included.
Commissioner-
Free,
Yeah,
free rides for veterans.
There's no change to the
There's no
prior
change to that.
decision on the veteran.
Commissioner Flowers, what is your vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you.
and this is keeping all the free ride days free for this time period, right?
Right. and
That
directing
is not
staff-
on the chopping block this time.
At this time, right. And then staff
Well,
will.
we're gonna come back with the way to pay for these routes, you know, including looking at the cost of Dunedin and all this.
Did we get everyone? All right.
That's everyone. There's 15.
All right, motion passes 13-2.
All right, so then the motion that's on the floor now is to adopt Resolution 2303 with the tentative budget as presented by staff. I will read the title of the resolution to adopt the original tentative budget that was presented. This is Resolution 2303, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority adopting the tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30, 2024 for carrying on the duties and obligations of the authority and providing for an effective date. So I just want to clarify, so the motion now is adopting the resolution which we're required, which is the required step, which is adopting the tentative budget as presented. The other aspects of Commissioner Oliver's motion, direction to staff, has already been approved. So they know to come back with those things. So does that make sense? So they will put the 3 routes back into the budget, and they will find a way to save the $504,000.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, you already had a motion for that.
I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't following. Who made those that motion?
So this is the motion, actually, this is the original motion made by Commissioner Latvala that was amended by the motion made by Commissioner Oliver.
And it's seconded by
So
Commissioner.
this one is, this vote is officially adopting the resolution,
Okay.
okay?
Everyone good?
Ready.
Oh, yes, please open the voting system. If everyone could please cast your votes. Commissioner Flowers, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. All right, motion passes 12-3. Thank you, everyone. And for those of you who were here, who have been here, who spoke during the public comment portion, thank you again. The road has twists and turns in these processes, but your voices were heard, and we're doing our best. So I hope that you are very proud of being here and speaking tonight. I appreciate you. Our final public hearing, where we will adopt the final 2024 millage rate and operating and capital budgets, will be held at the beginning of our monthly PSTA board meeting on Wednesday, September 27th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Does anyone have any other business for us tonight? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Good night.
Preliminary gymnastics, wasn't it?
Right.
That's
That's the exact word.
Jackie Kovalarich calls it. Our city attorney.
Yes.
She's like, oh, you're putting me through some preliminary gymnastics.
So we got
So I need to get this